Hey, MP friends, it is me. It is Professor Walden here, and I am here for a little chat. So I hope that you absolutely enjoyed this discussion that we are about to have with our guest. It is full of nuggets and gems, things that you can take back to your practice and implement yourself, as well as just bits and pieces of information to not only give you some knowledge, but to help make you a strong, caring, and kind clinician. That matters to me. So I hope that you enjoy it. Take a look. All right. So, hey, Cara, I am so excited and I appreciate you talking to me. So, Cara is going to talk to me about her autism experience, and I will let her kind of give background in her story. And of course, as always, as we go through this, I'll be prompting and asking you questions. And then we can kind of just maneuver the conversation that way. All right. So, Cara, tell me a little bit about your experience with autism, because the audience knows nothing. So I didn't tell them quite yet. But I just said I would be talking to someone so you can kind of fill them in on your experience.
My experience is several years in now. My son was diagnosed just before his third birthday. He is now 16 and a half. So we've had a handful of years on this journey together. I had no idea, never really heard much about autism until the words were said to me. There are some red flags here that point towards autism within an early intervention intake kind of thing. It was funny because when my son was, in that infant/toddler age and was not hitting certain milestones, I didn't really think much of it, especially the talking, because my daughter, who was 14 years older than my son, I distinctly remember when at her 2-year checkup, asking the doctor, like, she's not really talking a lot. Is that any kind of a big deal? And he goes, not yet. And this is at 2 years of age, 24 months. He's like, he goes, if she doesn't start talking within 6 months, he's like, we'll look into it a little bit further. I said, okay. And of course, within 3 months, she started talking, and she's now 30 and has yet to shut up. God love her. But or that's the joke that I tell everybody when I tell this story.
Right.
So at 18 months, when they were like, well, he's not really talking a lot. And I'm like, yeah, well, his sister didn't talk until, she was over 2. So I wasn't entirely concerned with it. They did have us do an in-home interview kind of intake with that. And there was a lot of other milestones that they were asking about that. Well, does he use, the utensils? Does he use, a spoon, everything? I'm like, well, no, because we've never really tried to have him do it. Does he do stairs? Is he trying to climb? I'm like, well, there's not really any stairs within my house there, that he's there that would be able to try. So there was a lot of things that he hadn't really been introduced to. So I kind of put a halt on it. And I said, let us try to introduce these things and see how it goes. And then within 6 months, we were like, okay, it's a 2-year checkup again. Let's bring him back in because he still really hasn't hit that. And then we did the in-home take, and then we had to go to like a play center where the area agency used. And I had one woman talking with me and asking me questions as another therapist was trying to get him to do certain things, fine motor skills, or, just direction or this or that. And he wasn't really doing much of anything. And that's when at the end, she kind of said to me, there's a lot of red flags here that point towards autism. And of course, naturally, I got upset and I kind of was taken back and teared up. And that was literally the only reaction of any kind that my son showed, or any interest, as he saw me get upset and he came right to me.
Oh, wow.
So it was a bittersweet moment. But so within a few months after that, we finally got in to have him fully evaluated by professionals. And they were like, yep, he's definitely on the spectrum.
So, we teach as providers that is when it's kind of when you will see that the autism spectrum kind of make its appearance. So 18 to 24 months is what we teach people.
Right.
And so you're saying kind of right smack dab in that little section is when you kind of noticed. And you were saying you hadn't really heard about this term, these words, just not on your radar. How about even before? Did you have any concerns prior to him being diagnosed at all? That maybe something just looked a little different?
I think when we were looking at it, we're like, okay, maybe there's a little bit of a delay there.
Yeah.
And I had other friends that, their child went through early intervention because they were late talkers or had a hard time with speech. And they were like, oh, got speech therapy and they're doing great now. So I just kind of figured, okay, early intervention, let's get him in and get the therapies going and he'll be fine. He'll be, but never in my wildest dreams did I ever even think the word autism,
Right.
or that there was a possibility until it was actually said to me.
Right.
And that's when it was like all the other dots started kind of connecting, like, oh, okay, maybe that's why X, Y, and Z and that. So
Okay, awesome. So with that being said, you're kind of being told these words and terms, and I'm sure things were like flying around over your head, under your head,
oh yes,
through your
oh
head.
yes.
Let's kind of talk about your experience just kind of in that space. I mean, you're still in that space, but still in that space of just first being diagnosed. They're telling you all these things. Were they talking in a language that you could understand?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, and in all honesty, it was once we got into the child development clinic that did the official diagnosis. That was the one and only time I ever stepped foot in that building. They had no follow-up with them. I had everything. Is
that normal?
Set up. Yeah, I think so. I think that was a lot of people around here, their experience here in New Hampshire. There is sometimes some follow-up if there's other neurological things going on that they might have picked up on or things like that. But I was also this was happening an hour away from where I lived, and where he had already started the early intervention with our area agency, that we had already kind of had it set up that, okay, because we were just waiting to get in. It was, some places have a 2-year waiting list.
Wow.
And we were several months out from being able to get in for the evaluation until they called me and they said, hey, we have a cancellation. Can you make it? And I was like, absolutely. So dropped everything and went. So we were able to get in a little bit sooner than we normally would have from our regular thing. So I had already had it set up working with the area agency that they were like, once we get the official diagnosis from them, we can open up these grander avenues. We can access a grant for him to pay for services until he's 3 and then transitions into the school system. So we were able to, we had a lot of that set up, and the area agency is fantastic. And they're, talked right down in terms that I can understand, and, really explaining how things went in. We were, with that grant, we were able to bring in a specialist, an autism specialist consultant that really set up his plan. And which was wonderful because he's also contracted with my school district. So when he transitioned to school, he's been with them, or his staff has been with him all along for he's a junior in high school now, and he started off at age 3. So the last 13 years. Yeah.
So, and you're saying early intervention, tell me exactly what they were referring you to.
The speech therapy, they had, occupational therapists would come in once a week. They had a speech therapist that would come in and really kind of work with him on his because he was nonverbal for a long time, just trying to get him saying things. Really, even there are special tools to kind of manipulate his tongue and his mouth and that sort of thing that they used and that sort of thing. They had a home health aide that would come in, just kind of check on things and do some, interactive activities with him to try to get him engaged, that sort of thing.
Okay, awesome. So now you've been growing up in this system and you kind of got the thing. Talk to me about that. What have been some of the barriers to just getting access and care? Is it specifically when they hit certain age pockets that you're possibly having difficulties, or it's easier, or even price wise and paying for things? How has that been?
Well, that's the biggest thing for me personally, or for our experience, is with, within the earlier intervention, and he was part of until he aged out at age 3.
Gotcha.
They were able to, we were able to, and we had a very short pocket of window. I mean, he was diagnosed at 2 years and 9 months. He was turning 3 and going into the school system within a few months. So we took that pool of money and really dumped it into some heavy services, is how we were able to afford to have the consultant come in and really set up the plan for him. And then the school district took over from there. But the biggest barrier for us has been accessing more services for him, because we don't qualify. Everything is paid through Medicaid or Medicare, and we don't qualify. I make too much money, even though I'm a single mom, and he is not, quote unquote, disabled enough to qualify for the for the Katie Beckett Medicaid, which is for children of severe disabilities. It's like a home care for children of severe disabilities. It's originally set up for that 1% that, to keep them home instead of having to put them into an institution or any kind of care like that. But he didn't qualify because he's not disabled enough.
He's not disabled enough.
Nope.
I wonder if, like, who's making that determination? I'm sure I
yeah, it's a long, there's a
paperwork
doctor, there's doctors that work for the state that go over the file. And, he was denied, and then I appealed it and went in, against this doctor, into an impartial person, judge or whatever within the state of New Hampshire that worked for the state. And then she made the ultimate decision to uphold the denial. And everybody's like, oh, you can reapply again. And I was like, no, I'm good. That was the worst emotional turmoil that I have ever in our autism journey that I had dealt with at that point. And I was like, I'm not putting myself through that again. What? So they can say no? I just keep reapplying until they finally say, okay, fine, here you can have it. But no. So we do a lot. I've done a lot out of pocket, and it's, even though I make too much money for him to qualify for the Medicaid to get the help for those extra services, I don't make enough to pay for all of those extra services myself out of pocket.
So what do we do? Like, how do I, as a provider, how do we help? What is it that we can do besides, I know clearly policy change is part of this big thing that needs to happen, because at the end of the day, if it's Medicaid, it's not anything that I necessarily can do in my clinic or in my office. That is a policy situation. But what are some things? I mean, do you have any suggestions as, healthcare folks, how we can help assist?
Really, I mean, like you said, I mean, it comes down to policy change. It's absolutely what it is policy change, and then finding the funds to help fund these families that, and that's the thing is, he would probably have accessed more services over the years if I had just quit my job and gone on welfare, because I have to stay home with him. I can't afford a caregiver or whatever. So, and then the whole world would open up to us for what we could do. But there are so many families, and I know some families over the years that have had to do that.
Wow. And
it's unfortunate because they don't want a handout. They want a hand up. They want to be able to be contributing members of society and have their children, their disabled children, be contributing members to the society and part of society in general. We don't want to be isolated and stuck at home because we can't afford to do it otherwise. So it's hard. So, I mean, as far as the healthcare standpoint is just, once those advocacy, and the policy changes start coming to fruition, it's really just you guys being advocates with us and saying, yes, we have patients that need this. It's a definite need, because you guys would have the medical background and the research background to really be able to show the numbers, like when kids are able to access these services, they thrive so much more here than as opposed to, those families that we have that don't have those services.
Right. Yeah, I struggle with this because you want, again, our nature is to make you feel better, to help you, to just fix it. That is in general how we want every patient to come in, and then we want to be able to fix it for them. So the fact that our hands are tied because of the access and the policy that
Yep.
we can't even do. And even if we say yes, let's change it, we could say yes and change it tomorrow and everybody could get it together. But you and I both know that this would not take effect for another 2 years. And by then, your particular child has
Right.
doubt of the system.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yep.
do you do when he turns 18? What is
So the school has him, they're responsible for him within getting those services and what he needs from age 3 to 21. It's actually, they just changed it. It's now 22, at least
okay?
here in New Hampshire. So he is fine. Now, of course, before he turns 18, I have to go to the courts. I have to petition to become his guardian as an adult.
Wow.
Otherwise,
Okay.
I lose all access to being able to talk to his doctor or making any decisions for him. So we have to do that before he turns, so when he turns 18, he's still under my guardianship. He would transition into adult services at age 21. And more services will open up to him because he drops off of what I make for money and it's what he makes for money at that point. So it's, and there's a lot more services that will open up for him. It's just getting us to that point at this, right now. Yeah. Yep.
So how have you found out about all of these things? I know you've gone down countless rabbit holes. You've probably had resources. Has it just simply been a lot of digging, people pointing you in the right direction? Is there one website that you went to?
Right. Oh, after his diagnosis, I jokingly say I quickly earned my master's from the University of Google, and I did Google a lot. He was also diagnosed at the same time that Jenny McCarthy was really big about it. And everything was, the Cajun-free, gluten-free diet. You got to do all these B12 shots. You got to, blah, blah, blah. And then they had the doctor that did this, blaming the vaccinations and, that was debunked and he was discredited in the whole 9 yards. I mean, it was like up and down. And I can't even tell you within the autism community, speaking of the vaccine thing, that is like that's an eggshell topic because there are people, and even though there really has been no research to prove that vaccines have caused any of these kids to be autistic, I'm not about ready to tell a mother that firmly believes that MMR vaccine is what gave her kid autism. I'm not going to argue that. If that's what you have in your heart of hearts, okay, and that because I've seen that. I mean, it's gotten a hateful debates back and forth within our autism community, and it's just, and this is all over, even online.
For
and that sort of thing. It's just not something that I particularly, I me personally, Trina, like, I don't the political debate of things.
I'm very curious. I know because I remember that. I remember that time, that space, and I remember the back and forth just between just watching society, one side being for and one being against. Right. But understanding like you that it was eventually debunked and all that kind of stuff. That conversation is still very much there. I would assume because of COVID, even that it's still very much like heavy weighing on the community. Interesting.
And there are, and like I said, there are some people that firmly believe that that is what caused their autism in their child. And I'm not one to I'm not going to sit there and say you're absolutely wrong, you're crazy, whatever. There's no evidence. I know there's no evidence, but between Googling a lot of that stuff, getting into falling down that rabbit hole, I've had wonderful resources through my area agency that know this world and becoming friends with other special needs families that you kind of meet along the way. And it's, hey, there's this camp or there's this site, or you can try this, this has a grant. I was able to get a grant to buy him an iPad. So we had some kind of a communication device for him when he was so nonverbal, that sort of thing. It's a lot of, within the community itself. And, and the doctors that we've used over the years. His pediatrician is amazing. He's a kid I grew up with. He was the valedictorian of my graduating class, as a matter of fact. And he's had other kids on the spectrum, but I think with Aiden, he's always said, Kara, whatever you want to try, he was like, just come to me first. Yeah. We'll have a conversation about it, especially with the Jenny McCarthy thing, that whole thing. and he was like, let's have a conversation about it. I will tell you from a medical standpoint what it is. And he's done a ton of research on stuff. A few years ago, I wanted to try CBD oil for him because I was like, I want to help control some of his anxiety, but I didn't want him on pharmaceutical drugs right away. Really wanted to try more natural routes. So I talked to him and he was like, it can't hurt him, Kara. Let's give it a try. And it worked for a really long time. But now he's so much bigger and so much older that I think we've kind of maxed out on that. So we have switched over to some pharmaceuticals, and that sort of thing. But he's been our biggest advocate, and our biggest, I really feel like part of the team. He's part of the team. That's good. Yeah.
I think it doesn't matter what you're going through. I think that's what you look for in a provider, is someone who is going to be a part of your team and not just quickly brush you off, dismiss you, no matter how far-fetched it can be. But you are looking to try things, as long as it's not harmful and things like that. You're looking to find someone who's willing to give it a shot, because you never know. You could be part of that 1%, I love to say, where it is effective.
Yep. And he's been great about that. He's just like, hey, whatever you want to do, let's talk about it first. We'll have a conversation. And I can tell you from the medical standpoint, what may or may not, be effective or might work, or what any side effects could be. Not that I was, we did have him tested for celiac, because I was like, before I go taking this kid's Cheez-Its out of his life, because his diet is and it still is very limited to a certain point. Way worse, obviously. I think any parent of a 3 to 5 year old would tell you that. They were on chicken nuggets, Cheez-Its, and goldfish, or whatever.
And French fries.
I'm like, before I start taking all this gluten out of his diet, like, if I don't need to, I'm not going to bother. I don't want to like force him. I'm not forcing the square peg into the round hole type of thing. Like, but we did have him tested, and just really overall health-wise checked out, and he's healthy as a horse, other than his autism. So
Well, he's healthy anyway, because I always when I teach it and when I talk about autism, I'm very much like, these are just our babies who see the world differently. That's just it. And we just have to figure out how to communicate with them so we can see the world through their eyes. And so I'm a firm believer in that they just have their own magical way that they see life and see the world. And we just got to figure out how to get on their level, because that's really all it is. So you've mentioned before this area agency. So for someone who may be watching and who has gotten a new diagnosis, tell them kind of what this area, now, obviously this is specific to you in New Hampshire, but tell them what the area agency is and kind of how it has assisted you in this journey.
So in the state of New Hampshire, back 30 plus years ago, we shut down the one institution that we had that was here that would take in people with intellectual disabilities. A million years ago, it was, oh, your child has Down syndrome, you should just place them in a home and forget about them, type of thing, anything like that. And we shut that down. We had, they would, and it was parents that did it, that advocated to get their kids out of there and just shut the place down. So we don't have institutions, and that kind of spurred, there's now 10 regional area agencies. They're a nonprofit agency that does case management and all the caregiving, the therapies, that they have a lot of that under their belts, and they have they're the ones that get the access to the Medicaid funds that are then distributed out to. So they do the case management. Okay, you come in, your child's in school, we'll come to your IEP meetings. We're going to, if you need these extra services, when he transitions into adult services, he will be with that area agency as well. And they'll probably oversee his case, and they're the ones that would handle his budget, or help me get, what he needs for a budget, and get all of those services all put together for that. They have day programs for those adult people that have adult services, so that they can get together socially. They do job shadowing. They own other little businesses that these people work at, that sort of thing. So they pretty much do it all.
Basically like your community connection, it sounds like
Yes.
your
Yep.
community network. It's like a central place where your
Yes.
community network just kind of
Yep.
branches
This is
out.
what you need, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is, how you have to access funds. And then and of course, once you get those funds, of course, you have all this reporting that you have to do, and you have to be within certain guidelines and It's like all this compliance stuff, and they oversee and take care of all of that.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So again, we say that just to get clarity because every state may be a little bit different.
Right.
But there is some form of this area agency somewhere. And the point is to get tapped into that because again, that seems to be your community and how you will get access to a lot of the things and just be in the know of what's going on regarding autism. And that's, I mean, half the battle is just knowing the information, right?
Yeah. And they have, they also do, they put on different workshops and they have different programs. I mean, we have a family support council that kind of oversees things, has their own general pool of funds to give assistance to families that might need it. That's the only service that I get is $1,200 a year to help pay for my son's camp. For summer camp, which it runs me about $8,000, so that I can keep working during the summer when he's not in school. So yeah, and then and the advocacy piece, really kind of keeping it. We have a legislative liaison that keeps track of what bills are going through in the in here in New Hampshire and even federally that may affect us one way or the other, and help us to be like, okay, hey, there's a hearing, and you might want to go in and show submit a testimony, go in and testify, write to your representative that you're in support or against and why, and tell them your story and that sort of thing. So it's really building that advocacy piece. And that's where you meet a lot of other families that are on the same wavelength as you. So you become friends and you have your own community that way as well. People that get it. I have plenty of friends that have neurotypical children, and their eyes have been opened over the years because of Aiden, my son. But I also have other special needs family there where it's like, yeah, today was it was not a good day. And they're like, yep, I get it. Totally get it. Some wine.
Yeah, right. So speaking
we can commiserate a little bit. Yeah.
Right. Speaking of that, let's talk about that. Like, how has his diagnosis, and even, I mean, Aiden's now 16. We all know, we all love him. So we all kind of keep up with you and what's going on. But how has that affected your family dynamics and relationships? And have you lost friends because of it? Have you gained friends we clearly know you've gained friends.
Oh yeah.
But
I've gained friends. And a lot of them are, because they're other special needs parents. It's affected, things. I mean, especially, when he's had rough spells, because now he's so big and so strong that sometimes the behaviors come out, and it's aggression, and that's, he scared my mom a little bit, because he did at one point push her down when she was watching him, which was scary, but she was okay. But after that, it was like, yeah, okay, we're not going to do that anymore. But, I mean, my relationship with his father deteriorated over time. I'm not blaming just him in this diagnosis, but it was hard. I mean, we had our own issues anyway, but it just certainly makes it a lot harder. And, I have lost some friends along the way, but I've gained the right ones that I need, that we need, for on this journey that are willing to take the journey with us. And I have had others that have stuck right along beside and are aunties, to him that, that love him just as much as I do at the same time, and keep trying to understand and how they can help and be part of his life. So
I love that. So let's talk a little bit, just jump right to kind of the summer camp. I know I see Aiden doing lots of fun things. You do keep him very active, to be someone who works so much as you do, because I know you work like I do. You do keep him very active. So he's always involved in something. I know the Special Olympics and the basketball, and then the summer camp. So talk about some of the things that he can do, and the things he has fun at.
Well, school now has the initiative, and we have been doing Special Olympics since he turned 8. So that's been several years now. And I was dragged in right along with him. And I'm one of the head coaches of the
Right.
team, and I absolutely love it. But he also does, unified sports within school, whether it's soccer, basketball. We're starting up track and field soon.
Really?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the summertime, and the thing is I also volunteer with different organizations. I'm very active in the community as
Yeah.
well. And, they know, well, if you want me to come to a meeting, it's during the week. I have him that he's just dragged along with me. So
Right.
we've done, different things with the Kiwanis Club that I'm a member of. And, he's there, and everybody, hey, Aiden's here, and he's just very much become a part of that. So it's a way to include him. It's an inclusion piece, and everybody's been very accepting of him being right along at the same time, which is wonderful, because it's getting other people to really kind of understand at least his part of the spectrum with autism and that sort of thing. But his summer camp, it's 70 miles away. I drive 70 miles down to bring him every day, Monday through Friday, for 9 weeks. If they're open, yeah, we do it. I'm like,
I
this
don't
is
think I
great.
realized it was.
It's a special needs camp. It's a camp for for the disabled children and adults. So yeah, so he goes there so that I can come to the office, get some work done, or go out, see some clients and that sort of thing. And I don't have to worry about him. I don't have to worry about necessarily getting the call like, oh, he's out of control, you need to come and pick him up, or we had this incident or whatever. It's like, I find out at the end of the day, no, he had a blast. They do all sorts of, like, they do arts and crafts. They have a pool. So he's very hyper focused with water, loves water, always has, loves to swim. So he's quite happy there, and then they do other fun things. They had one thing that they had like a Christmas in July week kind of thing where they'd have so he wore a Santa hat and, kind of dressed up in some of it, which he was happy about because he loves Christmas too. But there was another one, I think it was, I don't know, a Halloween theme or something. So we had like this giant panda head. So he just kind of brought that with him and wore that, they do all sorts of fun stuff. And he has been doing the day camp there for a few years now. And this year I decided that he's doing all the 9 weeks at the day camp, but then that following, they also have a residential camp. Of course, it's more expensive, but he's going to be going for his first overnight camp at the end of the summer in August.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a
After
big
being
deal.
there every day for most of the summer, it's like, okay, buddy, now you're going back, and now mom's not coming back for a week. Like, I'll be back at the end of the week to get you. So he's going to do overnight. So that's going to be a big step, big step.
Is.
Yeah, he hasn't been away from me for that long before, and I don't know what I'm going to do with myself either.
Right. That was my next question. You're going to have all this time. You're probably not going to know what to do with yourself. Do you have any plans at all?
That week, actually, I have one. I think I've already set one thing up, and that was there's a concert that Rod Stewart is coming, and my girlfriends and I were like, Rod the Pod, just from, because we're such 80s kids.
Right.
But I'm like, it's a Wednesday night, I couldn't go if it's during the week kind of thing, because I always have him. His dad takes him on the weekends kind of thing. So I'm like, if it's a Friday or Saturday night show, I'm all over it. But I'm like, it's a Wednesday night. And then I looked, I'm like, he's going to be at camp. Oh, we're so going. We are so going. It's the last opportunity we have to see the guy. I've never seen him in concert.
Absolutely.
So that's one big plan. And other than that, I'll probably just be sitting at my house like, it's way too quiet. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited for him because I know, that's a big deal. Overnight camp. It doesn't matter who you are. As a kid, just overnight camp is just a big deal.
Right.
But then also for you to get the reprieve, because we don't talk about that enough. As a caregiver who's caring for the caregiver, and you need that time and that space to kind of decompress. So with that being said, how are you caring for yourself? Has that changed? Has that shifted? Have you lost and found yourself? What does that look like for you now?
Lost and found myself a few times, but no, no, I am lucky that Aiden's dad we co-parent very well. We've been able to get to a point where we're very, very good friends. And he takes him usually Friday, Saturday nights, and I get him back Sunday mornings because we have Special Olympics. So I'll get at least one night if he's got to work overtime or whatever. And he's working a third shift job because during school vacation week, it's like, I still have to work. And so he'll take him kind of during the day for me. So we bounce off each other very well. So most of the time, I'm trying to do things on the weekends. You know, if I don't have him like a Saturday night, we'll go. I started taking ballroom dance lessons. I go hiking.
Fun. Good for you.
I bought myself a bike last year, and I love to bike again. You know, so I'll take off, you know, with a friend or two, and we'll either go for a hike or we'll go dancing for the night, you know, that sort of stuff. So it's been, I try to get the most amount of, you know, bang for my buck in that short period of the 24 to 48 hours I might have to myself, or without him, that I don't have to worry about having him too much. But, you know, there has been a point or two that, you know, it's one of those, hey, I'm not feeling well, I can't take him. Or I got a call a little while, about a month or so ago. He was having a bad meltdown, and it was like, you need to come and pick him up. He's destroying my house, kind of thing. And I was like, okay, you know, and I did. And, you know, but then we just recently had a conversation, and it's like, well, who do I get to call when I'm sick, or if he's destroying my house or coming at me, who do I get to call? And, you know, that's the realization of it. And there's a lot of respect there, you know, that his dad has shown towards me, because he knows that. And that goes a long way. But yeah, it's you got to take care. I know. Yeah.
You do. I do have a question, because it's coming from the provider standpoint and someone who has been a nursing home administrator, not saying that it would be the nursing home where you would put him. Is that an option for you, potentially getting the respite care, which means putting him in some type of care for a week or so that you get the few days? If it is an option, is that just something that you choose not to do because you do have mom and dad and you guys are able to bounce off each other? Or have you ever even thought about that?
So respite is paid with Medicare money.
Medicare money.
Medicare money. I think there is a little bit.
But there's like no funds. There's no like version of that for. Because that I don't know. Like I know, you know, I know respite care for old, but
some places may have it. I know, like our Family Support Council, we did set aside some money for non-Medicare respite for those families that don't get it, like myself. I've never really utilized it because I don't know. It's not really a whole, you know, big amount where I could send him for a week or that sort of thing. But, you know, looking at the future, when he does transition into adult services, there is that option to do like a shared family living situation, which my sister-in-law's son he's 26 now. So he's been there for a few years, and he lives with another family, but, you know, has his own space, has his own place, and he's thriving because he's kind of on his own and not having to be still living with mom, even though he, you know, loves his mother to death. But now it's more of come and visit, and then, oh, I'm going back to my house, you know, type of thing. So there is that option. I own a 2-family home, and that is something ever happens to me, that goes into his special needs trust. So I know my son will always have a place to live, even if he has to have support and having someone living in there with him. You know, but the roof is always going to be over his head. So, you know, it's comforting to know that, because that's the scariest thing with these kids. It's just like, well, if something happens to me, the heck's going to happen to him, you know? So, you know, it's really getting the planning of that all taken care of as well. So
what are some of the strategies that you have found helpful, just kind of supporting Aiden?
Believe it or not,
in his needs.
No. You know, and
whatever works. Okay.
I'll challenge anybody that tells me that, you know, autistic people don't get sarcasm, because some do. But no, it's really, I mean, the biggest strategy is really staying calm, which I'm, you know, I've had my moments as well. When, you know, he's escalating, it's really picking up and knowing those triggers, and what when he's starting to escalate and being able to, and then it'll just be like trying to then cool it down. So for example, he's constantly on YouTube. He loves YouTube. He loves like listening to the end credits and the songs and, of different movies, like not even the whole movies. He just wants to see the credits and read the credits and listen to the music, but he'll do these 5-second clips. But that TMX, I think it is the digital sound, like it has the very beginning, that whole thing, he'll start playing that. And it's like, woo, here I go. I'm gonna escalate. And, and then I'll be like, and he'll look over and I'm like, dude, let's play something else but that's telling me, okay, there's something he's starting to get triggered.
Gotcha.
That's what it's really just, it's been trying to translate everything. Because even though he's more verbal than he was when he was little, and he's talking more and more, he's not a conversationalist. You can ask him yes or no questions, he'll answer. But he's still, if he's sick, if he has a headache, if something's pissing him off, if he's getting frustrated over something, he doesn't know how to express that.
Yeah.
And so it comes out as these, these escalations and then these meltdowns and behavioral issues and that sort of thing. So it's really just strategizing, trying to figure out and almost like read his mind, like what's going on, and that sort of thing. So.
Sounds like you have to be really in tune with him.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
You just really have to be in tune with your own child. And I know we say that for the lay parents, but even more so when they cannot articulate to you what is going on.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with that being said, what is some advice that you would give to other parents who may just be beginning this journey, and it may not even be autism, but it just may be something that they are dealing with their child? What kind of advice would you give them?
First is really reach out and make some connections with other families that get it, because they've been there or they're navigating it at the same time. And the advocacy that comes between and the camaraderie with that and the commiseration some days, as I said before, is really, it's so helpful. It's really building your support system. And it doesn't have to be all just with other special needs families. I mean, it's building your support system within your own family and friend network. Admitting, hey, I need help, or today hasn't been a good day. So, I just need somebody to have a glass of wine and bitch with now that the kid's in bed, kind of thing. Right. And just really, just making those connections, because that's where you're going to find a lot of services that you may not know is out there, because they've all done that, or they've all learned it too. And really just know that this too shall pass. Yeah. If it's a bad day, this too shall pass. Hey, it's been an awesome day. This too shall pass. Just know that everything is temporary. They'll, even as they progress and show improvements or whatever, or even, at the end stage of things, depending upon their disability, things may regress until they ultimately have a shorter lifespan, kind of thing. But it's forever changing. But the one absolute on to is hope.
I love that. You always, you do. You always have to believe that it will be better the next time.
Yep.
And as my husband loves to say, we always get tomorrow to try it again.
That's right.
So that is the biggest thing. But no, this was wonderful. So I appreciate that, because I know eventually that there's going to be someone who's just starting out on this same journey. And you're a veteran now. You are able to you're able to tell the ins and outs of kind of just dealing with this journey. And like I said, it doesn't have to be autism, even though that's what we're talking about, but just a journey with a child who has something that you have to serve and that you have to address consistently and constantly. And it can be tiring. So for me as the provider, I'm very much in this space right now where I want to tell you to make sure that you take care of you. Because like you said, if you're not well and you're not taking care of, who's going to take care of Aiden? I understand he has another parent, but you are the primary caregiver. Right. And we don't want to miss that part. And it's not often talked about. So I'm excited for you that you are planning the concert and that you are going to have at least some rest and a little bit of fun. But I know that Aiden always has fun because I see it. So
Oh yeah. Yep.
I remember the panda head, which was and will always be hilarious.
Yes.
So I am thankful for you for kind of talking about your journey to these
I
folks.
appreciate the invite. It's been, I've had other people that are, hey, a friend of mine's grandson just got diagnosed. Could you? And I'm like, yeah, have them reach out to me. I'm happy to talk.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. So
Building a support system.
So tell everybody what you do though. So even though it's not related, well, it kind of is actually a little bit. But you can tell everybody what you do and how to get in contact with you, and we'll make sure that if they have questions about that, we'll get them in contact with you.
What I do for a living.
Yeah.
So I am a financial and retirement planner by trade. I've been doing this for coming up on 30 years. And once I get on this journey, I also made a primary focus of my practice to work with future planning for special needs families at the same time. So the best way to reach me is probably my website, karafinancial.net, K-A-R-A, financial.net. And it has all my contact information on it. People are more than welcome to reach out to me. If they need another advocate in their corner, another little support system, or want to talk about, hey, what do I do now, kind of thing. So
absolutely, because that's why I said it's related. I initially said it's not related, but it kind of is, because part of having a child, period, full stop, is planning for the future. Yes. No matter what. It just becomes a little bit of urgency when there is something that we have to address, like autism, because we have to make sure that they are okay in the event that we are not okay. So yeah, if you need financial planning, we'll make sure that we put all that information in there so that they can reach out to you. But I appreciate you again coming and talking to us.
Oh, I appreciate you too, and all that you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
So excited that you were able to listen in on this interview that we had and this good discussion. I mean, did you learn anything? I absolutely did. It's going to be good. Take what you've learned, utilize those nuggets and bits and pieces of information, and really internalize it and use it to make yourself a better clinician. Use it to make sure that you are treating your patients better. That's why we do this. All right, guys. NP friends, I'll see you around.